We are live.
Welcome to Judson, McKinney, and the Wanderers, and welcome back,
back.
Shannon Forrest. And man, it's good to
Right.
be on here together,
We
right?
took a break. I don't know when we were on last, right? Because it was before Christmas. We took our kind of vacation hiatus, and then I had to go out west to rehearse and get ready for Toto's upcoming tour. And then I got COVID on the back end of that, shut me out for a week and a half, 12 days.
That's right. That's right.
So-
Well, we're back in business, and we're with Sol Littlefield,
Yes.
and we're here, Sol of the Earth, right? Sol.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Just wrapping up some amazing new guitar tracks. So if you guys check out next week, Jed will be back in Nashville finishing out these tracks. So you'll get a taste of what Saul's just laid down for us the last couple days. It's been amazing,
Got
right?
some great shit, and we are in Muscle
Muscle
Shoals.
That's right.
So this is his new studio in Muscle Shoals, man.
Yeah, and we'll give you a walk around in a minute. It's a great spot. I mean, Muscle Shoals is, I've been coming down here since the 90s. And if you're not familiar, Muscle Shoals has its deep lineage in R&B and very formative influence on popular music starting from the late 60s. And there's just something about the community down here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
Saul and I
amazing.
have known each other since he was 19. I won't put a date on what that means, but we've always had a kindred thing, right? And I was always in the pursuit of my own path and my own studio. And Saul's had an awesome place in Nashville. For how long have you had that spot?
Oh yeah, the marathon buildings.
Yeah.
4 years now.
That long,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but
So
I've just been pretty much trying to take my cue from you since
Yeah.
hanging out at your place when you first built it. I was like, this is what I want.
You
I was
want
like,
your
I
own
want something
wheels.
like this. I want my own wheels. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I can just attest to you already. The vibe here is great. The place sounds great. He's all dialed in. Like a scientist in his own laboratory, you know. But most importantly, I mean, it's a soulful, groovy place. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The whole place down here. It's worth a trip out of Nashville.
Oh man,
It's
we
great.
needed it.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know what I mean. We have our lab that we work out of, and even that's good to get out
Just
of
to
the
have
building. You know what I mean?
just see something new, man.
and to not feel like you're knocked off your game from a standpoint of vibe, because that's the biggest part of creating. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This place, if you're interested in coming down here and working with Saul, I can't recommend highly enough to check it out. What's the easiest
Dude,
way
I got
to
a
find you?
house you can stay at.
All right, he's got Airbnb. I mean, it's
you,
like
you can find me from on Instagram or Facebook. I mean, I'm sure all
he's a
these guys have got my details, but
yeah. Producer, great producer. I mean, great engineer. All of that stuff. So it's like you can come down here and entrust all your creative efforts in his capable hands. You know, that's why we're here. We drove down here to get a piece of that. So yeah, we just had we came in last night, right? We were, gosh, I was really amazed because it's interesting to these guys because they watch us work, right?
Mhm.
And they've seen you. If you go back and you see, there's a Becca Bell recording session where Saul came out, and probably more times than once. But we work one way, and I worked with Saul at his place, and it's interesting how people embrace and adapt the technology and how they work. And there's a super fluid way that and very fast. I mean, I guess my point is, in 2 hours last night, we covered so much ground, because we got in Saul's world and let him work the way he works. You know what I mean? And really, what happened in 2 hours could typically take 2 weeks to get. I mean, and
Right.
I'm not exaggerating. You know,
Yeah.
so there's just it is an interesting thing because you guys hear me complain about this way of working or the technical
Yeah.
impact on certain people, but tech always in the right hands. It facilitates creativity.
right.
But it's always the smallest percentage of people that actually put it to the appropriate use. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so the point is we just blew through so much composition in essentially about 6 hours
yeah,
worth of
man,
time.
it's amazing.
And you'll see over the course of next week how it all comes together when we get back up in Nashville. But I mean, as far as let's do a little. I know some of the answers to these things, but when I met Saul, and not to embarrass him or anything, but I'm just you meet somebody, there's recognition, immediate recognition of what's going on. And the first time we met, I don't know if you remember it this way, but there's a weird studio up in Hendersonville.
I do remember.
It was up that weird hill, and you were hanging with Brent.
Yeah,
that
that's
day.
right. Yeah,
and you remember the name of that place?
it's Hilltop, right?
Well, no,
it wasn't.
We were there also.
We have been there too, but there was another one that was.
I just can't remember the place. It's a very random place. It was like off, almost behind a gravel kind of, quarry. Around anyway. I knew that day we didn't even play together.
Drums were in a booth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a big room, and the drums are in a tiny little closet in the corner.
That's right.
It's really weird.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they had all these old tape machines lined up. We were talking about gear and different things, but and then we ended up hanging out not long after that.
That's right.
We'd come and jam at the house, and I was like,
you just had
shit.
your studio for
exactly.
a couple years, right? Or
That's
you
right.
Just opened. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It was way new. So that tells you a little bit of the timeline, but it was an immediate, such an appreciation to find another new young musician because as we get down the road a certain way, there's a certain change. I won't say for the better or worse of a certain understanding, but Sol was like, immediately we were soul brothers.
Yeah.
Immediately. So, I mean, I've been dragging him into everything I've done since then. The band that I had then, he was immediately in that band. You know what I mean? And that was 2010 or 9. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, we always enjoy the hang. I was really blown away by Sol because I had, and I don't. You jump in any time here.
Sure.
But as my own musical development and kind of recognizing people, I felt like I had 2 feet in the door. I grew up in a musical household with a professional musician for a father. Even though I was outside the major community, it was I was still really fortunate to have that kind of upbringing. When I met Sol, and I told people this, when he was 19 years old, he was like, and I say this quite literally, the top 5 guitar players I'd ever played with. Like, and that was, I had just been working with Robin Ford. There's some people in that, and I don't say that lightly. It's about hands and ability to channel here through your hands.
And express.
And express. And it was like all the way back there. And my point is what was really unique to me about it. I'm pretty sure you told me you'd only been playing guitar since you were 16.
Yeah,
roughly.
thereabout. Yeah,
right?
15 or 16.
Yeah, so you're talking about a 3-year window. And so I'm telling you, a guy that picked up a guitar 3 years previously is in the top 5 of guitar players' hands and ability to communicate that I'd ever played with. And that was always remarkable to me because that's not typically, I mean, it's one of one. I've never encountered that. And we talked about it, and you had even, if I'm not misremembering this, you had even done a little bit of study about the nature of how the brain development, and there was some sort of blackout. What was it called? Do you recall?
Yeah, it's like a hyperfocus.
Hyperfocus.
Yeah, which I think definitely. I think we've probably all experienced that as musicians.
At some point
where you just you can't pinpoint like a particular period of time where you know that you were in the woodshed and you know that you were studying or at the very least absorbing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just. Yeah. You have flashes of sort of memories of like, oh, I remember that record, or I remember like that VHS or whatever, like what I was learning from. But everything else about your life, I think, because you're so engaged in that, like you don't remember anything else about what was going on. It's like during those times, and it's like, I think we can all still experience that sometimes. It's like when you get those late nights in the studio where you're just like, oh, where did the last 7 hours go? You know, like it's just you still capture that, but I think when you're younger, I mean, I think everyone's kind of got the possibility to reach that, but I think that definitely happened with me with guitar for sure.
It just was remarkable to me to what I experienced, because the other thing I believe I remember, if I remember this correctly, I think you told me this. We were jamming on some things that was kind of like psychedelic blues, boogaloo, kind of Hendrix to Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of stuff. We were just blowing, just the 2 of us in the room, and if I'm not mistaken, I said, hey man, I mean, how much of that playing have you been doing? Not the playing, but playing with someone else. And you told me like, oh, this is the first time I ever really sat down and jammed like that. Is that that was the first fucking time, and that's the imprint that was. So Sol's a real, unique, singular, what do you say? We all develop differently, and I've never met anyone that developed quite the way you have. I'm going to make sure that this thing is... is actually going, and it is. Yeah.
Oh,
beautiful.
nice.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, and that's not to just glue,
And
glue
one,
on.
and one
appreciate
thing
that.
that I really appreciate your playing is just how balanced you are as a player for what this type of work that we
Right.
need, because you're able to turn up Mad Scientist at full volume while also remaining a functional guitar player.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Which is
Functional,
which is a little bit hard to find, because
Yeah.
sometimes you'll find guys who are kind of on either side of the spectrum. I feel like in Nashville it's probably more function
Yeah,
than
than
Yeah.
mad
Mad
scientist.
Scientist.
You're having to shake the tree and hope you get one thing to fall out.
But
of
what's
it,
great about working with Sol is that I feel like you're able to do both.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
able to do
Yeah.
those and step in those moments where it's like, okay, well, we need something to functionally work, just as like a session player.
Yeah.
Right.
But then also, from a creative hat,
right?
be like, let's turn this up a little
Yeah.
bit on weirdness.
Compose,
Like, it needs to sound like it was discovered and composed in a moment of like drug-fueled like
band
epiphany.
fights. Right.
But, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
but
6 months of band fights and
Yeah.
then, oh my god, I got the part.
Right.
and
But I
then-
think maybe also your
All my favorite
discipline,
players are
because you
like
do
that.
this for a living.
Yeah.
I feel like you have the discipline where you can turn that on without needing the drugs. Right?
Right,
Like
right.
you-
Yeah, that's-
you're
yeah.
able to be like, okay, well, it's like.
And the,
Yeah.
and the other thing that
Exactly.
that just from
Yeah.
a standpoint of experience that is can be a pitfall is that the more routine and monotonous, and I suffered this. You can get into ruts of thinking and even allowing for creative possibility to be reduced based on the context at which you're constantly experiencing music from.
Mhm.
It just starts to impose a certain kind of, you don't even realize it's happening sometimes if you're not getting outside your realm enough. And for you to have, he's had like at least 10 years now of a lot of studio work, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like really been if you check out the All Music, you'll see the contributions he's made. And that's admirable and speaks to the difference in different types of musicians. He's not been pounded into
Dust.
the ordinary. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's still
yeah.
able to, to shift those gears and still be full on available to what if is what I like to call it. You know what I mean? Like I tend to get into maybe a little bit too much of a practical approach sometimes, and sometimes I'll get too specific about things, and you're still able to get around that and re-access your
Yeah.
own creative
Well,
take on something.
One thing I noticed this time working down here with you is that I felt like you turned the freak volume up more and more readily. Now, was that just because of comfortability with working with us, or was it just because you felt more comfortable in your studio? I noticed it happened faster, the weird cool shit.
I think interesting, like, and I'd agree with you, and I'd say probably some of that's got to do with the fact that, it's like I'm in my own comfort zone and my own area, and I feel like there's not so much of I think even geographically being close to Nashville, I feel like I'm constantly thinking of this demo session mentality of like, we can't let the first 20 minutes go to waste. We've got to be making downbeat on this song, and we've got to be making progress by this time because we've only got 2 hours before I got to go pack up my shit and get in my car and leave.
Yes.
Like, whereas with this, it's a little different. It's like, I keep a ton of my instruments here. I have pedal board here, and it's just. And I love that we did this on a weekend. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
so much fun. That's just I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing on a weekend. You know what I mean?
No, it's
just like,
amazing.
look,
and you
it's-
put us up at your place. I mean, again, just to say it's just an awesome way to do
Yeah,
things.
it's so much fun.
It feels like music. It doesn't feel like business,
Yeah.
and that's the big thing that you want to be able to stay in touch with.
And I feel like Alabama's good for that too.
It is.
I mean, it's not rushed. I mean, we were at the taco thing for like
Yeah.
an hour waiting
Yeah.
on tacos.
Yeah.
No one's in a rush down here,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing when it comes
Not
to just.
feeling the clock.
You
Man.
don't feel that. Yeah, no, that's the way I'd sum it up is
You
not
know.
feeling the clock, and I think that's maybe why I was maybe able to kind of sort of.
Well, and to be honest, I learned. I'm always trying to think, and sometimes I'll over express my point of view of what my experience has been in trying to facilitate someone else's path to. Hey, look, don't let me step on your toes, and just by saying that, you've already stepped on toes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've drawn attention to
Yeah.
the thing you weren't trying to draw
Yeah.
attention to. And when we did work at his place, we did the stuff on Liberty Bells at Sol's studio, and it's like, you know what, man, when he's in touch with the transport of Pro Tools and able to start and stop himself, that's the faster way for him to work out his creativity than guidance. Just stand back and let him do his thing, right?
And what's really cool about what Sol's doing, which I really respect, just in terms of a utilitarian thing, is the fact that you create parts that can be flown in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And I think that's really great.
Try to be conscious of that,
I think
yeah.
that's a really important skill to have.
Yeah.
Well, because in an ideal situation, which is just not feasible, and it is kind of speaks to something that's changed about music. If you had unlimited time to sit and work these things out together, there's a lot of time involved to finding those out. When you get a mature musician that you respect the artistry of and you have an understanding with, and that's why we made the choice, and it was no choice for me. It's like everything I've done with Sol since we met, But you're able to do something that feels like it was constructed from the same seminal place of beginning, but it's done in a fast and effective way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like a farmed out overdub to your project.
Right.
Exactly.
It
No, it
feels
doesn't.
like the
Yeah.
sound of the band.
A lot of that I've probably picked up from being around you when you're engineering yourself and drumming, and it's just, and I've seen there's so many drummer engineers in town. It's just it's kind of became the thing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's in every other instance where I've seen guys do it, it does have that kind of farmed out thing to it. Whereas with you, it's just like it doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't take anything away from it. The fact that you're the one in command of the keyboard and the engineering and the sounds and stuff, whereas to other people that would be a detriment, but whereas for you it seems like no, that's just a way for you to get to where you need to be quicker, and to be able to play. It's just like and
we really are kindred spirits in that regard, but right, because I don't know if it was this way for you, but this was interesting for me when I first set up my studio and put the keyboard and mouse behind my drums. Initially I hated it. I felt like the thing was watching me. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that thing is right there. And then I kind of, like you get past that and it just becomes fluid. It's just a button and I start playing. It's not a process anymore.
Yeah.
You know? But
So while we're talking kind of history and you guys working together, I gotta ask, as you were coming in to your career, was that something you just sort of punched through on your own, or did you kind of help him early on, or how did?
Tell him that Brent Mason was,
Brent Mason and Shannon were the two who, I don't think anyone ever sort of made a big push to, because session roll doesn't work like that. You can't force somebody on the, you can't force somebody to use it. But the best experience I got was hanging out with you, watching you, getting to watch. Brent hired me to do his overdubs because he didn't know Pro Tools at the time, and that doing remote guitar tracks was kind of the new thing at the time. He's like, everyone else is doing this. He's like, I've got all this stuff to do it, but I don't think I'm really a computer guy. He's like, could you do that? And so I was doing that, and I got to watch him doing the same thing, taking a lot of the time it'd be like, very undeveloped songs that at the time they were primitive MP3 bounces a lot of the time, where it's just a work tape to a click or something that a lot of didn't even have drums or a vocal on or something. And I would see Brent do that same thing where he would get in that studio mode and pretend like, you could see that he was imagining that all the final pieces were there and that he was playing the tracks as if he would with a full band, and building up a track left and right and center and doing that whole thing. And that's when it was mind-blowing to me. I was just like, wow, like he's doing this. There's no producer here. There's no one giving direction, but it's just like he's coming up with the sig licks on the fly, and like the second verse guitar parts are sitting with each other and balanced perfectly, and then the choruses lift in the the they need to, and that was when it was like mind-blowing for me. And
for what it's worth, before I met Sol, I remember Brent telling me about him, and he would get, like email people would be submitting things and you reaching out to him, and his wife would kind of be the person that was, overseeing them while he would be maybe doing some kind of business in the corner, and he'd hear it. And he told me, he goes, man, I can't wait for you to meet this kid that's coming. He goes, Julie kept playing me these videos, and every time I would turn around and go, who is that? And she would go, oh, it's this Sol. It's the same guy. So Brent, right, he really made a big help of bringing you over.
Yeah,
right?
He did. Yeah, he was like, he gave me the belief that he was like, He was like, I don't always encourage it when people say I want to
Yeah.
be a session player.
Yeah.
He's like, I usually kind of have to blow it off and be like, well, that's something you can strive to obtain. He's like, knowing full well that like the majority of people, like, they don't have that thing.
Right.
But with me, I mean, he straight up told me, he was like, yeah, you need to be here. You need to be doing this.
Yeah.
He was like, you're gonna do the thing, and that was, you know.
Yep.
It still took a lot of work from then, you know. I mean,
Oh,
I
man.
did 8 years of touring really before I kind of was able to fully commit to doing studio stuff. But I mean, so yeah, some of my best early memories of being in town were over at your place, jamming and getting to hear what real drums and stuff should sound like, and being in an environment where it wasn't, like you were saying, it wasn't too far where it was too sort of crusty and, you know,
Yes.
regimented and conservative, and it also wasn't too chaotic and like
But nothing happened.
nothing happening. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I was just like, this is how it should be, like
Yeah.
this. So I've taken all my cues for the way that I produce and the way that I record. It's like, I'm so much
Wow.
And
so much of that comes from you.
Check
so.
out his Sol Littlefield.
Yeah.
Check him out because, man, you've been on some big fucking tracks.
Oh yeah.
Uh, one that I really like, I know Shannon was.
Yeah.
What's that?
Long
Day.
Day.
Oh yeah,
You're on that, aren't
yeah,
you?
that's
I
right.
love that one.
It's a Broadway.
It's a smash.
favorite.
Man,
Yeah.
everybody loves that
Standard now,
song.
man.
It's
It's
a
already
standard.
Well, and one other thing quickly, Sol plays all instruments. He's a remarkably great drummer as well. You know, so it's like my mind's kind of blown when I see a guy that can apply so much in different areas and not undermine, you know, the original area, because there's really it's wherever you point your being toward, that's going to be a voice. But the fact that you were able to develop the dexterity and the technical ability to do two things that are functionally very different, you know, I mean, a lot of people play every instrument sort of, but Sol can really play the drums, you know. It's a different thing.
Well, Shannon, we're gonna have to teach you guitar now.
You know what? That's too late.
You're like,
That's just too late. I would like to, you know what I mean. But in the end, I'd rather be hearing someone else play it. You know what I mean? I don't love the drums that much. People don't understand when I talk about that. And David Hungate used to say that it's the best thing that made sense to me. It's like, I didn't really love the bass. It was just the thing
right.
that I could play well enough to play music with people I wanted to play with.
Right.
You know? And the drums are just like, to be able to get back in the conversation on another instrument, I just don't have enough time, and I get more satisfaction out of those, experiencing those other people play while I'm a part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the engineering side that I did delve into, it's people kind of misinterpret what that was for. That was because my instrument is probably the most complicated to represent.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right.
It's the hardest
And
to
the
get
easiest
right.
to misrepresent, right?
Yeah, and that really takes a physical toll. I did everything I've done, even chasing down producing, just to give myself an opportunity to be in proximity to music in the way that I wanted to be, just being a drummer.
Right.
It just didn't happen just being a drummer. I had to take more steps to create the opportunity just to be able to play drums in a context that I could enjoy really on a particular level. And then the sound of my drums became something that was more and more important to me, and it becomes physically important. I know it is the same for you guys, because I know that when you're playing and pulling here, when you're working with an engineer that's maybe compressing you in an inappropriate way, so it's taking low end away from you, you're digging with your hands or even into your whole body to compensate for the lack of impact. It's not all that different than drums. It's just drums is typically you're more guaranteed that it's going to be wrong. You know what I mean? Or it can go wrong. You know what I mean?
And you guys have seen on the channel
more variables.
that on this channel, I mean, you've really seen that Shannon. I mean, the way he does drums. I mean, nobody does it better than you.
No,
Like, I mean, you have
it's remarkable.
and both of you guys are so ergonomic in that. From instrument to
you won't see anything like this. You know what I'm saying? Now, one thing I can say, you know who else, and this is good, excellent company, and it makes all the sense in the world. Michael Landau he sits at a console with a, you know what I mean, he runs it all and knows how to do it all and can do it, you know, very quickly.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah. But it's kind of two of two that I can think of.
But it's the way to be, right? I mean, don't you think nowadays? I mean, you kind of you need to, if you're gonna
Well, the point I'm trying to make is some people think, oh, it's another person indulging. Or I feel that way. I get real jaded. It's like, why don't you just sit in the chair that you're good at? You know what I mean? Like, but this is more about facilitating the thing you're already doing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now you have
For
more
sure.
musical things that you like to pursue, but first and foremost, it does facilitate your ability to articulate what you're trying to do.
And Jerry McPherson always talked about that years ago, like in the earlier YouTube days.
Yeah,
where
he
he was
savvy.
a big advocate
Yeah.
for, like, to be a studio session player as a guitar player. He's like, you have to be your own engineer. You have to engineer and produce yourself, essentially. It's like you can't be leaving too much work up for other people.
Right.
You can't be sending them tracks that aren't properly edited, or they're just messy, or that just you can't take up someone else's time from doing that. It's like that's the way forward.
And that's the pro
is
side of things.
Efficient thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention the other thing that happens there. I don't know if you experienced it much, but I don't like to leave too much composition in the hands of the people I'm sending my stuff off
Right.
to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it can come back wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't stamp it enough,
I
it's
thought
like
about
it can be.
Yeah, they can misinterpret it.
Yeah.
And that's as a session player, people, it's not egotism. It's like, well, this is what I do, and I called a couple of people on it over the years and I stopped doing remote stuff to a large degree for that reason. It's like, don't do that to me. I don't play that way. And what you don't understand is when I sit down and record, that's my calling card. All those cards behind me, they're used up. The next thing I play is the next thing that's possibly going to get me back hired.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you leave too many things to the the misinformed, I suppose, or you know what I mean, or just the wrong interpretation can bite you. That's all.
Exactly.
Huh. That's interesting because
Well, it's that thing. It's just like it's like this session player. It's like you're hiring me for my instinct. It's
Right.
not
Let that
it's not
be.
just the playing.
Right.
It's like unless it's like here's sheet music and
Right.
here's what we want you to do, specific instructions. That's cool. That's fun sometimes too, to kind of wrack your brain around something
Just
like
do
that.
that.
But especially with, like you said, the compositional side of it, it's just like so much of that is and should be in the hands of the players.
Yes.
It's like
Otherwise, call a different player.
yeah,
Right. You know what I mean? If it's
or program it. Or,
Right,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
indulge yourself.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, no, it's been great. We have an awesome reservation. Now, another thing about being destination recording, it gets you out of the fray of particularly, you won't feel the clock. You won't, because in Nashville you take a break at 1. Pretty much regardless of how complete you are in that moment.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You're out. Yeah, you're out.
You're out, and then you're going to take a break. You're going to come back at 2 or whatever. When you get outside of that mentality, it feels much more like music, and you don't typically interrupt yourself in mid thought.
Right.
It's like, okay, or even mid emotion. You may be done, but you may want to sit here a minute. You don't want to have to walk out the door. It's just a whole different, much more conducive. And the next point is there's just so much interesting around Sheffield and Florence here, which is all 5 minutes around the Muscle Shoals. There's so much good food. It's remarkable.
It's incredible.
It's remarkable. So it's really great vibe, a great energy to be able to come and make music. But food is always that indulgence, right? And so that's great. We have a good reservation at George's Steakhouse tonight that we're looking forward to as a celebratory moment for 2 days of massive achievements.
Working with guys like you, I come in from a little bit of a different door. I'm not a session player. Maybe I will be one day. Who knows? But
don't do it.
I'd have to do it in spite of you.
That would be our failure. So I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, fair enough. But I have a little bit of different perspective because I have pretty much in my I wouldn't even call it a career. My art have just dealt with nothing but the creative side, really.
Yeah.
And so it's so refreshing to work with you guys because I think as much as that thing you don't like,
it's like, God damn, he can get it done.
Yeah, y'all still internalize discipline. Like, y'all don't waste time.
Yeah.
And even though we're not on the clock, like, y'all are considerate of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's,
it's hard to do that when you're like in a band.
You know what I mean?
With a bunch of people, or there's just
that thing you guys don't like. I like working with the fact that you have that background in
Right.
that.
It's kind of somewhere in there, and a lot of it has to do more with regard for a mutual understanding of the ebbs and flows of your emotions when you're creating. That's
Right.
why maybe I over articulate. Hey man, sorry, did that shut you down? Do you need a minute? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I only know that because I know what it does to me when somebody
Right.
feeds me bad information, and it knocks my emotional legs out from under me, and then I have to gather myself to try to find creative mojo again.
Well, let me ask you this, guys. Like, do you think y'all have a great workflow? Do you think it would have been like that even if you hadn't been in that Nashville boot camp, or do you think there was just some internalized discipline in it, or do you think you would have just sort of
There's
been
a
that way
clock
anyway?
component of that definitely sharpens you a certain way.
There is, yeah, but I think you kind of have to have that going into it. I think
Right.
it's like
the capacity to be able to do that.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah. I don't think that like I don't think you could be a Brian Wilson or Sid Barrett character and walk into the Nashville thing and come out of it being like
Still that.
guys like us,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, or like
Right.
you know, or still that, you know
Right.
exactly. It's like I think it's just sort of. I don't know.
Be Roger
It
Waters.
depends. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, so many. I mean, like you said, it's like so many people like they start off as artists and then end up in the session thing because they've, I think there's like people have just made so many records and they got sick of wasting time with band members and people who didn't have that conscientious nature of being on the clock, and then they got into it, or that's how they became good producers because
Right.
from just witnessing so much wasted time and being like, I know how this can be like so much better,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
which is sort of I mean everyone's a producer, you know what I mean, like
At
you,
this
you
point,
are
right,
it's like
right.
I am, it's like we're all we're all doing that, it's all
Well, and these guys have heard me say it before. Judson's a remarkable guitar player, and I reached
Yeah,
a
he's killer.
point. I reached a point when I was, 10 or 15 years ago, where session player was like a four-letter word to me almost. Like I quickly was like, man, I'd rather work with. Now the other frustrating points of that time concept and efficiency of completing things could be problematic. But I felt like non-session players had way more access to creative, possibility than the most of the people I was constantly working with. It's like, oh,
Right.
that again. Can't you try to think any other way? It just does that to you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said, it's really hard to. It's just a testament to the kind of musician that can make it through the gauntlet of doing that so much. Because he'll tell you. I kind of discouraged you to a certain regard about oversaturating that, and not that you were ever undisciplined about it, but I was like, don't do that. You don't want to do that. Right? It wasn't that you were doing it wrong.
dark side,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, it was just like, but I just didn't want to see that come in and hurt something, what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And it didn't,
Yeah,
So yeah, it's an awesome thing. We've had an amazing time.
Oh
here.
man, just
Yeah.
being here is great. Should we check out the
Yeah,
should
we'll
we
do a walk around.
yeah,
through?
absolutely.
Check out what everything is, Yeah, right on. So
This is the original Fame Studios.
Yes, this was B-room console, right?
Yeah, this was Rick Hall had the talkback
Yes.
switch put over here because he always liked to sit on the end.
yes.
Um,
So yeah, from Fame, right? Rick Hall. Check out the Muscle Shoals documentary. This was in Fame Studio B. I remember when it was there. It's an AMEC Angela, which are great sounding consoles. What you got over here?
this is all my crap that I brought down from Nashville that I've just been accumulating for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've ever been able to put it all in one place and not have it as part of some sort of modular, deconstructed rig.
Yeah.
And so our next step is for, get an efficient patching system going on. But I'm really excited about, like, same as you, I'd
Yeah.
love to be able to print everything on the way in
Yeah.
and have, like, really dial up your drum sounds and, like, leave it, like, set up,
Yeah.
or at least for a month or two and be like, this is, like, my sound.
Yes.
And then if I feel like changing something else. It's
Well,
'cause
what was
it's-
that box you showed me? Is that in your studio rack that'll take all the cabinets to the heads to the different cabinets?
Yes, I got 2 of those. I got one in my studio in Nashville, and I've got one in Carthage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that'll probably eventually happen here once I.
Do you mind if I zoom in on your pedal board? Because I'm sure
Absolutely,
these
yeah, go-
folks will want to see.
Go ahead.
It's trade secrets, man.
It's trade secret stuff, but if you're not Sol, you're not going to be able to make it do it. But that is what's down there. For any of you guys that are curious.
That's one of 3 boards that I have. They're all basically the same.
Yeah.
They're all kind of based. They're all built around the same kind of core components.
Yep.
And there's this one I keep here, and then I have two more back in Nashville.
It's the Indian, not the arrow, but it's
Helps
nice
with
to.
Arabs.
That's right. And some great axes here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, were you using that Bassman?
Yes.
Is that what we were hearing?
That's what we were hearing for
Yeah.
all of the electric overdubs.
Great.
We got some other stuff. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on out here.
So down the hallway to the tracking room.
Got more instruments and drums.
Yep.
Finally been able to.
That's a vintage Gretsch kit, right?
Yeah, it's 50,
Is that a 50s?
50s round badge kit.
Yeah, man. Beautiful.
Yeah. Like some other stuff in the storage room back there. but-
So yeah, I'm gonna kind of pan slowly, just give everybody kind of a sense of scale of the room. It's really a great. It's a good sounding room. I mean, it sounds really good in here, and it's got a great feel. Like just the way that it's laid out. It's got a little baffle situation here where he can isolate things.
And it feels lived in. I mean,
Yeah, it's
you know
got
what I
that
mean?
right
You
vibe.
know what I'm talking about?
Yes. It's
I
not
hate-
clinical.
Not that sterile thing.
No. Bunch of stuff amps down the hallway here, right?
Yep.
Gonna take a look around at that stuff.
And then downstairs we got Jimmy Nutt.
Yeah, Jimmy Nutt.
Who has I think the best studio in the Shoals is the Nutt
Yeah,
House.
it's
which
beautiful.
Is below us. This is
Yeah.
it's an old bank.
Yeah.
And his studio is in basically the bank vault, and it's huge. And
It's
it's my
crazy
little, my
good.
little storage room.
Oh,
where I
yeah.
keep-
Also
keep
more.
some This is eventually going to be a vocal booth. We're gonna
treat it?
Yeah, we're gonna put a door through that wall to the control room,
Yeah.
and then treat it and have it be like an acoustic vocal. And maybe try to put glass in if we can.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know, that's just
That's
kind
great.
of further down the road.
Beautiful.
But
Expansion.
yeah, exactly. Already thinking about it.
Yeah. How many? What do you? Mac McAnally said to me, you're always $3,000 away. That's
Always,
as close
yeah.
as you'll ever get
Yeah.
to the thing.
That's
It's $3,000
so
away.
true.
So it's a great lounge,
Oh yeah.
And
And the bathrooms are cool in here.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I love
bathrooms.
it.
is-
Like they're real interesting.
I think
2 sinks.
This must have been like the old one of the
It's
old
cool,
staff,
Yeah,
like,
it's great vibe.
Like when this was a bank, this must have been
Like their break area
the
or
upstairs
something.
break area.
Yeah.
I'd imagine. I mean, it's like definitely you wouldn't have customer bathrooms upstairs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
No,
imagine. It's
no.
like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's
Very
just
very cool old building.
such a good feeling place. Got a little stovetop if you need to do some cooking, Yeah. And like I say, you guys you'll get a load of what we were working on the last couple of days all next week. I'm excited to get back there and get through it with Judson.
yeah, we're gonna-
it's
We're gonna plow.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
We got work to do.
We got work to do. Yeah, we put some resonator on one thing. But yeah, I guess we'll sign off, Sol. Yeah. We're
Well, thank you so much
yep.
for hanging out with us.
And
And
Sol, get in here,
you
Judd.
guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's
I'll
take
go
it.
this way.
Yep. All right. So we'll
Thanks
catch you
for tuning
next
in,
time,
guys. Judson, McKinney, and the Wanderers from
Yep.
Muscle Shoals, Sol Littlefield. We'll see
Yep.
you next week, right?
Yep. Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic.